Growing up, betrayal and heartbreak weren't just distant tales, they were the constant background noise of my life. My father's cheating wasn't some buried family scandal. It was a bleeding wound everyone tiptoed around. He'd vanish for nights at a time, return with the stench of drugstore perfume clinging to his collar, and never offer a real explanation. Meanwhile, my mother stood by him, loyal to a fault, quietly absorbing the blows of his disloyalty. Even as a kid, I couldn't understand it. Why didn't she leave? Why did she let herself be humiliated like that? Back then, I still believed love had some kind of sacred, unshakable power. I thought it could weather anything. But the reality of their crumbling marriage showed me just how fragile love could be, how easily it could be twisted into something cruel. I swore my life would be different. When I met Lena in high school, I thought I'd finally found what I'd been searching for. Someone who seemed kind, grounded, loyal, a partner I could build something solid with. I truly believed our relationship was built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. From the moment we said, "I do," I pictured a future that looked nothing like the chaos I grew up with. I was committed to giving Lena the kind of stability my parents could never create. But no matter how strong a foundation seems, even concrete can crack when pressure builds. And I was about to learn that the illusion of safety is no match for life's unexpected storms. The night Lena chose to be with another man wasn't just another night. It was the moment something inside me shifted forever. She seemed to believe I'd just shrug it off, that her little thrill wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Maybe she was right about the thrill, but she underestimated the damage. What she dismissed as a bit of harmless fun was, to me, a betrayal that shredded everything we'd built. That evening, I was sitting at my desk, drinking coffee and thinking about our morning together. Lena and I had been a thing since high school. Sure, we'd had a few breakups here and there, dated other people during the rough patches, but we always came back to each other. We gave each other everything, our innocence, our dreams, before prom. 9 months after graduation, we were married. As far as I knew, I'd been her only real partner. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Scam calls make my skin crawl, especially those fake IRS ones. But this time, it was Lena's work number. "Hey, babe," I answered. A man's voice came through, formal and clipped. "This isn't your wife, Mr. King." I blinked, thrown off. "That's me, Ethan Marshall King III, but most people call me Trey." "I'm Mitch Pierce," he said. "I work with Lena. We need to meet this afternoon." He gave no details, just a vague sense of urgency that instantly made me uneasy. "Is Lena all right?" I asked, heart starting to pound. "She was fine when I last saw her," Mitch replied. "But there's something going on that I think you need to be aware of. Can you meet me at noon?" He wouldn't explain anything over the phone. My gut twisted. I didn't know if I was walking into a prank or something worse, but I agreed. We met outside Spike's diner at noon. He suggested we take a walk, away from listening ears, so we strolled towards Central Park. And that's when he hit me with it. "Your wife's been spending a lot of time with a guy named Chase Bennett," he said. "They eat lunch together every day. Today, I overheard them making plans, dinner at the Hilton tomorrow night, dancing, and then staying the night together." It felt like the ground dropped out from under me. "You're saying they're sleeping together?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yeah," he confirmed. "He's got reservations booked, and your wife's out shopping for an outfit. She's getting ready for a date." I went cold. How did they think they could pull this off? "She thinks you love her enough to let her explore," Mitch continued. "She doesn't think it'll impact your marriage." I stopped in my tracks, my mind spinning. "Why are you telling me this?" His face turned grim. "I was married 9 years. My wife cheated, and the legal system wrecked me. Now, I'm trying to help someone else avoid getting blindsided." We talked a bit longer before he left me alone with my thoughts. If what Mitch said was true, my marriage was already circling the drain. It was frightening how quickly I could see it, how easily my mind went there after just one conversation. But I knew that feeling all too well. I remembered what my mother went through. My father was a drunk and a serial cheater, never even bothering to hide it. He laughed at her pain, belittled her like it was a sport. When I asked her why she stayed, she'd just look down and whisper, "Because I love him." One afternoon, when I was about 11, he took me to his girlfriend's place. I got bored after a while and walked home. I told Mom where I'd been, and she didn't even confront him. 2 days later, though, my father whipped me with a belt over a broken plate. Looking back, I know it wasn't about the plate. I'd ratted him out, and that was my punishment. After watching my mother suffer, I swore I'd never let that happen to me. Even entertaining the idea of Lena cheating made me feel physically sick. Say what you want about pride, but I wasn't going to relive my mother's nightmare. Eventually, she did leave him, and life finally turned a corner. She got remarried. She's happy now. Lena and I live in a home that belongs to my mom and stepdad. So it wasn't just about heartbreak. I was tangled in a web. Do I confront her? Pretend I don't know? Wait and see? I'm a salesman. I know that success comes from being proactive, not sitting back and hoping things work out. But in this situation, if Mitch was right, maybe I never really knew Lena at all. And she sure as hell knew how I felt about cheating. So I decided, no more guessing. I had to act. Step 1. I hired a private investigator. We met, quickly hammered out a plan, and I handed over more money than I was comfortable with. Then came the hard part, going home and pretending nothing had changed. When I walked in, Lena greeted me like everything was fine. She kissed me, hugged me, smiled like we were living some perfect love story. And I had a choice to make: play it cool and let her carry on with her secret, or drop a subtle clue to let her know something was off. But if I tipped my hand too soon, she might just deny, deflect, and ride it out until the heat died down. There was no way I was going to live in a fog of uncertainty. Still, I knew that if I started acting suspicious, Lena might catch on and cancel whatever she had planned. So, I kept things casual, pretending everything was fine. That night, I cooked dinner, just like always, pork chops in the skillet, the way she liked them. But putting on a show was tougher than I thought it would be. Either she was an Oscar-worthy liar, or, just like Gavin said, she was so full of herself that she didn't even bother hiding it. Around 11, I headed upstairs. She was already asleep, breathing steady like nothing in the world was bothering her. I showered, got into bed, and stared at the ceiling, unable to rest. By 6 in the morning, she was up and dressed, her footsteps soft as she made her way downstairs. A few minutes later, I followed her, but the house was empty. She was already gone. We almost never left the house without a kiss or even a see you later. But not that day. It was Friday, usually one of the best days for RV sales, but I called in and took the day off. Then I reached out to the dealership's attorney and asked if he could recommend a good divorce lawyer. He mentioned his wife but warned me she had no interest in defending men who cheated on their spouses. After he made the call, I sat down with her. I laid everything out, told her about my meeting with Gavin Pierce and what he'd said. She raised an eyebrow and asked why I'd go as far as hiring a private investigator based on the word of a guy I'd just met. I explained my family history, how my father's betrayals and my mother's silence had shaped my zero-tolerance stance on cheating. She nodded, then advised caution. If your wife's as smug as Pierce suggests, she probably thinks she's untouchable. Let's wait for proof. I looked her in the eye and told her flat out, I won't tolerate any kind of cheating, big or small. If she goes through with this, I want her served by Monday. And if it turns out Gavin's lying, then I'll eat the embarrassment. She gave a slight nod. If you need it, the papers will be ready by 1 o'clock. Back at work, I was trying to help an older couple decide on a motorhome. At first, I wasn't sure they could handle a 45-foot RV, but the more I talked with them, the more I saw how sharp and energetic they were. More than that, they genuinely loved each other. You could feel it. I found myself envying what they had, quietly hoping that maybe Lena and I could still be something like that, someday. They chose their RV, and we went on a test drive. Mr. Green handled it like a pro, while I just sat there, half-focused, listening to their playful banter. It reminded me of what I'd once imagined for my own marriage. I gave them a discount off my commission, something small, a gesture, and they drove off, beaming. By late afternoon, it was time to head home. I checked in with the investigator. Everything was set. At 5:30 p.m., I pulled into the garage. Her car was already there, and the house was still too quiet. No smell of dinner. No sound from the kitchen. I stayed calm, placed the envelope from the PI on the mantel, and waited. 15 minutes later, she came downstairs. She looked stunning, exactly like Gavin had described, dressed to impress, overnight bag in hand. My heart dropped. Wow, you look amazing. Big night, I asked, doing my best to sound casual, even though my stomach was in knots. One of the guys at work's been asking me out. She said like she was talking about the weather. I thought, why not? Could be fun. Fun, I echoed. Are you saying you're going out with him? Like on a date? She nodded, unbothered. Yeah, we figured, since you're the only guy I've ever been with, maybe I should see what someone else is like. We're having dinner, going dancing, and then we're spending the night together at a hotel. The blood drained from my face. She said it so calmly, like she was announcing a spa appointment. You're serious? You're really going to sleep with another man tonight? I asked, my voice tight. She shrugged. It's not that big of a deal. Just one night. I'll be back tomorrow, and everything will go back to normal. Who knows, maybe I'll pick up a few tricks you'll like. I stood up, trying to hold myself together. Absolutely not. I'm not okay with this. Who is this we you're talking about? She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. It's just one night of fun. I stepped in front of the door, blocking her path. Lena, if you walk out that door tonight, this marriage is over. I mean it. We both heard a car horn from outside. That's him, she said, moving toward the door without hesitation. I reached out, my voice shaking. Please, don't do this. I have to, she replied, brushing past me with zero emotion. She leaned in, kissed me on the cheek, and smiled like she was heading to brunch. I'll be back by noon. Don't be so uptight. If you leave now, there won't be a home to come back to, I said, the words feeling like stones in my throat. She scoffed. God, you're being ridiculous. Have fun stewing in your own jealousy. We'll talk tomorrow. Night. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't bother watching her get into the car. Instead, I walked straight to the fireplace, turned off the audio recorder, and picked up a box of heavy-duty trash bags. Over the next 2 hours, I erased her from the house. I cleared out her closet, the vanity in our bathroom, even grabbed her birth certificate, high school diploma, and social security card from the safe. By the time I was done, everything that tied her to this home was boxed up. I gathered her childhood photo albums, school awards, even that old Remington bronze statue her grandfather gave her. I stripped the fridge of every one of her magnets, stuffed everything into her car, and rolled it out to the street. The keys? Left neatly on the driver's seat. I crawled into bed, but sleep never came. I lay there, staring at the ceiling like I had the night before. Eventually, I gave up, brewed some coffee, and tried to distract myself with an old Hogan's Heroes marathon. It didn't help. 2 full days passed like that, restless, haunted, hollow. I felt like a ghost in my own life. By 11 a.m. on the 3rd day, I'd finished finalizing the green sale and wrapped up the paperwork. I got home at 11:45. The locksmith had already come and gone, dropping off new keys. The investigator was waiting too, handing me a small hard drive with nearly 18 hours of surveillance footage. At 12:30, I sat down in front of the TV and pressed play. That's when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there she was, Lena. Hey, my key doesn't work. And why is my car on the street? She asked, clearly annoyed. I stood in the doorway, calm but cold. Your key doesn't work, I said, because this isn't your home anymore. And your car? I moved it, because I don't want it in my garage. What the hell are you talking about? This is my house now, Lena snapped, trying to shove past me like she had every right. I stood my ground. I told you last night, if you got in that car with him, you were giving up your place here. Everything you own is in your car. You made your choice. She froze, eyes wide. You can't be serious. It was just, she began, but I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. I slammed the door in her face. The pounding started immediately, fists hitting the wood like she could force her way back in. I opened it again, calm but cold. You keep banging like that, and I'll call the cops and have you dragged off this porch, I warned. I knew it wasn't a threat I could back up easily, but I was beyond caring. You can't do that. I live here, she shrieked. This house belongs to my mother and stepdad, I said flatly. And guess what? They've made it clear. You're no longer welcome. She stood there, speechless. So I shut the door again, harder this time. I tried to focus on the surveillance footage, but rage boiled inside me. Eventually, I glanced out the window. There she was, sulking in her car. I headed to the kitchen for water, but ended up pouring myself a gin and tonic instead, hoping the burn would help calm me. That's when the doorbell started again. Not a single ring, just relentless, rapid buzzing like a child holding it down for fun. My patience snapped. I flung the door open, ready to unload, only to find her sister, Amber, fingers still pressed to the button. Lena's at my house crying. I want to know what's going on, she demanded. I didn't care. Not in the slightest. Without saying a word, I slammed the door in her face too. But the bell rang again. I yanked the door open so fast her hand got caught, and she stumbled slightly. Hit that button one more time, and I'll break your fingers, one by one, I growled. Amber shoved against the door, managing to hold it open. Please, just talk to me, she said, her voice cracking. I stared her down for a moment, then stepped aside and let her in. She looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. I thought you loved Lena. I can't believe you kicked her out over a stupid fight. A stupid fight? I repeated, almost laughing. Is that what she told you? She said you two argued about going for a walk, and you lost it. I exhaled sharply. Sure, that part's technically true. She wanted to go out, and I didn't. But what she left out is who she was going out with. I didn't wait for her to ask questions. I hit play on the recording I'd made of Lena's confession. Amber's expression crumbled as she listened. When it ended, she sat back, stunned. I had no idea. Yeah, I said, voice flat. Neither did I. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. Divorce her? No, I said bitterly. This isn't a decision anymore. This marriage is done. Amber nodded slowly and stood up. I walked her to the door. She paused before stepping out. When all this is over, can we still be friends? I took a long breath. Lena and I are getting divorced. If she decides to drag this out, it's going to get ugly. And when it does, I doubt you'll still want to know me. She offered a faint, bittersweet smile. I think I'll miss you. Then, gently, she touched my cheek and kissed the other. Take care, Trey. The door closed behind her, and I was alone again. From Saturday on, I kept my phone off most of the time. Lena tried calling over and over, but eventually she gave up. I did end up speaking to her father. He tried to downplay everything, insisting that since nothing physical happened with Chase, it wasn't a big deal. I gave him the same explanation I'd given Amber. Intention matters. It wasn't just a one-time bad choice. It was something she planned. That's betrayal. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end before he sighed and hung up. I think he finally understood. This wasn't fixable. By Monday, I was done waiting. I called my attorney and filled her in on everything that had happened over the weekend. I told her I was ready. Serve the papers. She promised they'd be in Lena's hands by the end of the day. The rest of that day passed in a blur. I don't even remember what I did until around 4 p.m. when my phone buzzed with a call from her office number. I answered. Good afternoon, Mr. King. This is Gavin Pierce, the voice said, sharp and businesslike. Thought you might want an update. Sure, I said cautiously. Well, your wife was served the summons a little while ago. After reading the first few pages, she fainted. Paramedics had to come take her to the hospital. My jaw clenched. Seriously? Oh, that's not even the end of it, he continued. Once the ambulance left, Chase Bennett picked up the papers, skimmed them, and nearly passed out himself. Part of me knew I shouldn't find it satisfying, but I couldn't help it. As twisted as it was, there was something poetic about it. I had no sympathy for either of them. Thanks for the update, Gavin. Keep me posted. Will do, he said before hanging up. Seconds later, my phone rang again. It was Amber. Lena's in the hospital, she said. So? I replied, my tone cold and unbothered. I just thought you'd want to know. I didn't ask, I snapped. Sharper than I meant to, but I didn't take it back. Are you really that heartless? She asked, stunned. My coldness. I said. That comes from your sister. I warned you this was going to go south. And trust me, this is only the beginning. And I meant it. The following weeks? Predictable. Painful. But necessary. Lena kept trying to get through to me, texts, calls, even showing up where she knew I'd be. I ignored every attempt. Her parents urged me to listen, but I didn't see the point. My mom tried to console me, always checking in. I kept saying I was fine, even though we both knew I wasn't. Gavin Pierce became a daily voice in my life. His calls were oddly comforting. He was the only one who understood what was happening with Chase Bennett. Lena still showed up at work, but mostly sat at her desk in silence, only speaking with her lawyer. She and Bennett barely exchanged words. At least, not where anyone could see. I was just waiting. Eventually, our attorneys set a formal meeting. Lena, her lawyer, mine, and to my surprise, Amber. It was the first time I'd seen Lena since I threw her out. She looked drained, thinner, like guilt had started to eat at her. Seeing Amber there threw me off. Her lawyer asked if everyone was ready. I looked at Amber. Are you sure you want to be here? I'm here for Lena. That's not what I asked, I said quietly. But fine. Stay. Lena was already seated, so we took our places. Her lawyer started in immediately. Mrs. King denies any affair and asks that the divorce be dismissed. She wants to try counseling and reconciliation. My lawyer gave me a look before responding. If there was no infidelity, can Mrs. King explain what happened that night? I can, Lena said. A friend picked me up for dinner. What's his name? My lawyer asked. It doesn't matter, she replied. Nothing happened. No reason to involve him. She launched into her story. Champagne at dinner, more afterward. Too much to drink. Passed out. Nothing physical. Just an unfortunate misunderstanding, she claimed. I made a mistake, she said. But I love my husband and want to fix this. Amber gave a small nod, clearly hoping the explanation would hold. My lawyer asked calmly, let's say no sex occurred. Were there any touches or behavior that crossed a line? No, Lena said firmly. Not even close. Amber nodded again. My lawyer looked at me, and I picked up the remote. A screen lowered, and I hit play. There she was, walking out to chase his car. He opened the door, and they kissed, slow and deep. I paused it. Lie number 1. Lena blanched. Amber stared at the screen. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. After Gavin's call Thursday, I met with my PI. We tracked everything from the moment Chase arrived. We even knew the room number 417 at the Hilton. My investigator accessed their suite before check-in, I added. Set up surveillance. You said no touching, right? I asked. Yes, Lena said, but less certain now. I pressed play again. At the Hilton restaurant, Chase's hand was on her lower back. Then her hip. Then lower. She didn't stop him. Lie number 2. Lena's face dropped. Her lawyer flipped through papers like they suddenly mattered. Amber stared at the floor. The footage showed more champagne, flotation, and then straight to the elevator. I paid for that footage. For minutes after they entered the suite, she was on him. Lena stood up. Amber followed, looking horrified. She seems to have forgotten a few things, Lena's lawyer muttered, grabbing her files. Without another word, she left, Lena and Amber trailing behind. Later, at the dealership, Amber found me. Mind if I sit? She asked quietly. I gestured to the chair across from me. We sat in silence. Then she asked, You knew, didn't you? Knew what? When I came to your house, you already knew they slept together. I nodded. Yeah, I'd already seen the video. She didn't speak, so I continued. They weren't flirting, Amber. They did it. My wife gave herself to someone else, knowing exactly what it meant. After a pause, she asked, Why didn't you tell me? I thought she'd come clean. Admit it. Agree to the divorce. If she had, I wouldn't have dragged your family into this. I've always liked your parents. Silence again, heavy and thick. Then my phone rang. I answered. This is Gavin Pierce. Just a heads up, your wife quit yesterday. Didn't even clean out her desk. Thanks, I said. Keep me updated. I hung up. Amber looked like she wanted to say something, but the loudspeaker cut in. Trey, line 6. I nodded and took the call. It lasted 15 minutes. Amber hadn't moved. When I came back, she looked at me and said, She's gone. Gone where? She packed up. Probably found her own place. She asked me to tell your parents she's sorry for disappointing them. She didn't just let them down. I replied. Yeah, we know. She stood, paused, then walked out. That night, I watched the full video again. My lawyer had one copy. I kept mine. And what I saw wasn't love. Wasn't romance. It was transactional. He didn't care about her. She didn't seem to care about herself. It hollowed me out. Made me cold. There was no passion. Just a mess of regret and selfishness. I felt the pain, the rage, the disbelief. And under it all, a growing, bitter clarity. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted vengeance. But mostly, I just felt empty. I fell asleep in the chair, mind tangled in the wreckage of everything that had happened. Betrayal plays on repeat when you're trying to rest. Over the next few weeks, my lawyer kept trying to set up another meeting with Lena's legal team, but her attorney couldn't get a hold of her either. A month passed. Then another. I checked in with Amber and her parents a few times, but no one had heard a word from Lena. Not a message. Not a sign. At one point, I considered hiring a private investigator again, someone to track her down, but my lawyer strongly advised against it. Instead, I took practical steps. I canceled all the credit cards and transferred half of our remaining joint funds. She hadn't touched her side. Maybe she was being careful. Or maybe she was hiding. If she stays gone long enough, my attorney told me we can pursue a divorce on the grounds of desertion. So we waited. Then the phone rang. Trey King, I answered. Good morning, Mr. King. Gavin Pierce here. Do you remember me? Of course, Gavin. How's life treating you? I said, sitting up straighter. Not bad. Just thought I'd check in, give you an update on my end. Remember my ex? Yeah, I said. She moved in with that guy, right? That's right, he confirmed. Turns out the guy's a scam artist. Got her to help him embezzle from her company. Now they're both behind bars. I let out a laugh. Poetic justice. You still working the same job? He asked. Yeah, still at the dealership. Well, that's partly why I called. Things have been quiet since your wife took off, but lately, Bennett's been making some very curious phone calls. How so? I asked, now fully alert. He was on a call earlier today, and I caught a few words. He said, I miss you too, Jody. My stomach dropped. You're sure? He left his phone on his desk for a moment after the call. I jotted the number down. Gavin, you're a damn legend, I said. Send it to me. Will do. Keep me posted, all right? You got it. I passed the number along to my attorney. But curiosity got the better of me, and I made the call myself. The line rang, and someone picked up. Hello? Hey, Amber, it's Trey. What do you want? She said, flat as stone. Do you or anyone in your family have ties to Florida? Why? Her voice sharpened. I think Lena's there. Why do you care? She snapped. Because I need her to sign the divorce papers. That's all. When exactly were you planning on asking her? I don't have to ask her anything, I said. My lawyer's handling it. But if she cooperates, things go faster. There was a long pause, then Amber muttered, she's in Fort Lauderdale. Why are you just now telling me this? I asked. She didn't respond. A few days later, she gave me Lena's address and confirmed Lena was aware that the papers were ready. I passed everything to my attorney, and within a day, the documents were sent. Amber and I arranged to meet for dinner and maybe watch the surveillance video again. Closure, I guess. She made it clear up front. This wasn't about revenge. And there'd be no comforting her brother-in-law. I wasn't expecting any different. Then Thursday morning rolled around, and Gavin called again. Hey, Mr. King. Just a heads up. Chase Bennett quit. No warning. Just packed up and told someone he's moving to Florida. That's convenient, I muttered. Thanks for the intel. How's everything with you? My wife confessed. Took a plea deal. She'll get a lighter sentence. Her boyfriend's not so lucky. We both chuckled bitterly and wrapped up the call. Afterward, I called Amber. How long have you known Chase was moving to Florida? There was silence. Amber, how long? A few days, she finally said. And how many times has she seen him since she moved? 4. Twice she visited him, and he came here twice. 4. I repeated, in disbelief. You knew this, and you didn't say a word? After everything? Trey, she's my sister, she said, barely above a whisper. I hung up. She called back right away. I let it ring. I sat in my cubicle for a while before heading to the repair shop. One of the mechanics out there, old army buddy, retired vet, he'd been through hell and knew what it was like to lose people in more ways than one. We sat on a bench out back. I filled him in. I can make sure they don't make it to Florida, he said with a dark smirk. No need, I replied. They're not worth prison. I can handle it clean, too. I laughed, shook my head. Nah, man. Let karma do the work. Living with her own choices is punishment enough. We talked for a while, until I heard over the loudspeaker, Trey, call on line 4. Back at my desk, I picked up the phone. Trey King. Trey, please, don't hang up. I hung up immediately. Walked to the receptionist. No more calls today. I'm leaving. As I drove down my street, I spotted Amber's car in front of my house. She was already on the front step knocking. At least she remembered not to use the doorbell. I pulled into the garage, entered through the kitchen. She was still knocking. I finally answered. You're not welcome here. Just let me. I shut the door. This time, gently. I heated some spaghetti and meatballs, sat down in silence, and crashed early. Sleep hit by 10 p.m., a rare gift those days. Next morning, getting ready for work, I looked out and saw her again, waiting for me outside. Maybe she thought I wouldn't make a scene at work. She was wrong. I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my arm. Damn it. Trey, listen to me. I pulled away. You don't have a single word I care to hear. You let her come back, lied to me, and watched her crawl back into that guy's bed again and again. You hid it. That makes you just as guilty. I hope all 3 of you rot. It was a long time before I saw Amber again. But she stayed in touch, with my mother, mostly. And by that point, the entire dealership knew. I didn't bother pretending. Everyone talked behind my back. Let them. Later that week, my mom invited me to dinner. She made my favorite, her homemade Italian. We sat and ate, quietly at first. Then she said it. I talked to Amber today. I dropped my fork. Mom, if you bring up that family one more time, I'm leaving. Trey, she said firmly. There's something you don't know. Her tone stopped me cold. Something in her voice made me sit back down. I know everything I need to know. Lena cheated, and I'm divorcing her, I said, my voice tight, struggling to stay calm. Okay, Mom replied softly. But what about the baby? I froze. What? She's pregnant, my mom said gently, like it was just another piece of dinner conversation. I pushed back from the table so hard my chair screeched across the floor. You knew? And you didn't tell me? She asked us not to, my mom admitted. And you listened to her over your own son? My voice cracked, caught somewhere between betrayal and disbelief. She cheats on me, and you still protect her? We thought, maybe you just needed time. To cool off. Maybe even to forgive her. Forgive her? I nearly laughed. Have you lost your mind? You lived through Dad cheating on you for years, and now you're telling me it's somehow okay when my wife does it. Honey, things are different now, she said softly, trying to sound reasonable. People explore, they need space to grow. It's not like before. I stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. You think cheating is growth? She didn't respond. I stood, grabbed my coat, and walked out. I didn't slam the door, I just left. Outside, the world felt tilted. I couldn't believe this was real. My own mother, the same woman who used to cry herself to sleep over my father's betrayals, was now telling me to forgive mine. It was surreal. It was like she'd started believing infidelity was some new form of enlightenment. Like she'd buy an encyclopedia from a door-to-door salesman and act like it was better than the internet. I couldn't go home. I drove straight to the dealership. It was late, but I had my keys. I walked through the quiet halls and found the employee lounge. Collapsed onto the old, worn couch. Sleep didn't come easy. I rolled back and forth until finally, sometime around 5 a.m., I passed out. I woke up around 10:30. My boss had apparently seen me and put up a sign, "Do not disturb, let him rest." Eventually, one of the salesmen came in and said the boss wanted to see me. I stretched, back aching from the couch cushions, and made my way into the office. "Trey," my boss said, giving me a long look. "You look like you've been hit by a bus. You need time off, and I've got something that might help." He handed me a manila folder. "Remember the Greens? The couple you sold that blue Prevost to?" "Of course. Mr. Green had a heart attack while in Vancouver. He's okay now, but they need someone to bring the coach back, and they asked for you." "That sounds perfect," I said. "You leave tomorrow. Janie will book the flight. Use the company card. And take your time, 4 days for the drive, but I'm giving you 10. No rush." It felt like an escape, and I needed one. When I landed in Vancouver, I went straight to the hospital. Mr. Green was buried under tubes and wires, but still managed a weak smile. Mrs. Green hovered nearby, straightening his blanket and whispering encouragements as he grumbled about hospital food. Their love was obvious. Simple. Strong. "Mrs. Green," I said as I walked in. "It's good to see you again. Trey, how was your flight? I came to collect your husband." She laughed. "Walter, behave. You're under doctor's orders. You're not allowed to sass him." We spent time talking as Walter drifted in and out of sleep. Their granddaughter Tessa would be making the trip back with me once he was released. The grandson had already flown home. Tessa walked in with 2 suitcases, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She was about my age, attractive, well put together, but her cold expression made it clear she wasn't here to make friends. "Tessa's been helping us out," Mrs. Green said. "She'll show you where the motorhome's parked and help get it ready for the trip." Tessa said nothing. "She doesn't want to leave us," Mrs. Green explained gently. "But we promised her a scenic drive through Yellowstone. Your boss said it might do you some good, too." "I'll see what I can manage," I said. As we left, she handed me a signed letter for border clearance and kissed me on the cheek. "Take care of our girl and the coach." Tessa stayed silent on the ride to the RV park. Every question I asked got a grunt or no reply at all. Once we reached the bus, she stormed inside without a word. I followed. "Can I get the car keys?" She tossed them at me like she was throwing garbage. I barely caught them. "What's your problem?" I muttered. I didn't wait for an answer. I hooked up the tow car, checked the RV systems, then considered grabbing a beer before leaving. I stepped inside. "Any beer in the fridge?" Tessa slammed the fridge door shut. "I'm not your damn maid." That was it. I was done. Done with Lena. Done with Amber. Done with my mother. And now, done with Tessa. Even Mrs. Green's kindness felt distant now, tainted by proximity. I unplugged the RV's hookups, climbed into the driver's seat, and started the engine. By 8 p.m., we'd crossed the border into the U.S. Customs cleared us quickly. Tessa had to step outside, and once back inside, she disappeared to the rear bedroom without a word. Fine by me. By morning, we were in Burley, Idaho. I'd driven through the night, fueled by coffee and sandwiches from roadside diners. I was exhausted, but still pushing forward. Around 7 a.m., she finally spoke. I'm hungry. Got anything to eat? I didn't even look at her. I'm not your damn maid. She glared at me, then stomped off. By 9 a.m., I needed a break. I pulled into a rest area to use the bathroom. When I came back, Tessa was standing by the door. If you get off this bus, I said, sliding behind the wheel, you're not getting back on. Then I turned the key and fired up the engine. By noon, the strain from the road had settled deep into my shoulders and lower back. I pulled into a parking lot wedged between two 18-wheelers and collapsed onto the couch inside the bus. My eyes barely had time to close before I passed out. When I woke up, the low hum of the Cummins diesel engine was vibrating through the floor, and the RV was moving. I shot upright, confused, only to glance at the clock and realize I'd been asleep for 5 hours. Tessa was behind the wheel, cruising along the highway like she owned it. For a minute, I just watched her. She had both hands on the wheel, focused, relaxed, and somehow totally in control. Say what you will about her attitude, but her grandfather must have taught her well. I made some coffee, slid into the passenger seat, and let the silence stretch between us. We didn't speak for nearly 2 hours. But then the numbers started nagging at me. We'd been on the road close to 25 hours, averaging about 60 miles per hour. That meant we'd covered around 1,500 miles. At 8 miles per gallon, we had to be running low on fuel. Hey, we should stop for gas, I said. She didn't respond. Seriously, I repeated. We need fuel. Still nothing. Then, out of nowhere, she snapped, I took care of it while you were snoring. I blinked. Huh. I hadn't heard or felt a stop. No idea how she pulled it off. But I didn't ask questions. I just went back to the couch and let sleep claim me again. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I marveled at how she'd managed it all, gas, driving, maybe even navigation, without once waking me. Another 3 hours passed, and we rolled into a truck stop in Dumas, Texas. It was after 10 p.m. I made us both sandwiches, poured a cup of stale coffee, and took the wheel. We were Houston-bound. I drove through the night, stopping only once to hit the bathroom and grab snacks. By 8 a.m., I rolled into the Houston dealership lot. Less than 40 hours had passed since we crossed the border, but it felt like a month. I stumbled downstairs to the restroom and splashed cold water on my face. When I came back up, I caught sight of the Green's car pulling away. The passenger window was down, and Tessa stuck her arm out, flipping me off with no hesitation. I returned the favor and headed to the break room. I made myself another coffee and dropped onto the couch, where I didn't move again until 3 p.m. When I finally woke up, there was a note from my boss pinned to my chest with a sticky note. See me when you're human again. I knocked on his office door. You're monopolizing the break room, he said with a smirk. Got a call from Mrs. Green. She wanted to know how you survived the trip with your granddaughter. I raised an eyebrow. Survived? What do you mean? He leaned back, chuckling. Apparently, Tessa was unbearable the entire trip. The Greens didn't even want her traveling with them. Their grandson bailed early because he couldn't deal with her. Mrs. Green said she was impressed you didn't strangle her. I smirked. Believe me, I thought about it. He laughed. Well, they're grateful. Mr. Green's getting discharged soon, and they want us to do a full service on the bus. They're even talking about keeping it. That's surprising, I said. I figured they'd sell after this. Nope. They're in love with it. He stood up and pointed toward the door. Now go home. Shower. Sleep in a real bed. Give the break room a break. I took his advice. After only 3 days away, I felt like I'd lived an entirely different life. I went home, showered until the water ran cold, shaved off a week's worth of stubble, and then collapsed into bed. I didn't wake up for almost 30 hours. When I finally came to, I realized I hadn't checked my phone once since returning. I dug through my bag, through my dirty clothes, and found nothing. Panic set in. I called my boss. Hey, any chance my phone turned up in the break room or in the coach? He checked and called back. No sign of it. Damn, I muttered. Wonder how many customer calls I missed. Later that morning, I went into the dealership to catch up. I spent a couple hours returning client calls, then stepped into the break room to grab some coffee, and there she was. Tessa. I ducked out before she saw me and waited in the staff area. 10 minutes later, my name came over the loudspeaker. I rolled my eyes, grabbed my cup, and took my time heading to the boss's office. He greeted me with a familiar grin. "Tessa dropped off your phone. Left it in her grandparents' car." Just then, his phone rang. He stepped out to take the call. I found Tessa waiting near the showroom. She held out my phone, but I didn't move to take it. After a moment, she placed it on a nearby table. "Am I really that bad?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I answered without hesitation. She didn't say another word, just turned and walked out. I was still standing there when a loud crash echoed from the parking lot. I ran outside and saw 2 cars twisted up in a wreck. One of them was Tessa's. Medics were already on the scene. She was conscious, bruised, bleeding, but alert. When she saw me, she gave a small, sarcastic smile. "You always catch me at my best," she muttered before passing out. The EMTs took her to the hospital. I called the Greens and gave them the update. Mr. Green's response was cold. "A broken arm? Too bad it wasn't her neck." Then Mrs. Green asked if I'd call Tessa's parents. I did, keeping it brief. Later, I finally checked my phone, 54 missed messages. Most were from my mother, Amber, some clients, and one from Gavin Pierce. I called back the clients. Ignored the rest. After work, I made a detour to the hospital. At the information desk, I asked about Tessa and was directed to her room. Her parents were already there. Her mom smiled and introduced herself, Greg and Elaine Green. They were polite. Her dad even joked, "She hasn't stopped talking about that trip." I smiled politely, thinking about how little we'd actually said to each other. After a quick chat, I excused myself. Her father stopped me at the door to say thanks for calling. I nodded and left. Back home, I thought about calling my mom. I didn't. That choice held for weeks. My mother kept trying. So did Amber. Even my stepfather called. I hung up when he tried to hand her the phone. Eventually, the divorce papers came. Lena had signed them, bold, red marker, like she wanted it to scream. No mention of a pregnancy. If there ever was one, it no longer mattered. In 2 months, I'd be legally free. And for the first time, I started to think maybe staying single wasn't such a bad idea. Then again, I also realized I hadn't had sex in over a year. Damn it. I hadn't been with anyone in so long that the second I sat down, I immediately got up again. I hit the shower and tried to make myself look human. Clean shave, decent shirt, cologne I hadn't touched in 6 months. I was halfway through tying my shoes when the phone rang. "Hello?" I answered, still catching my breath. "Hi, Trey. It's Marilyn Green," came the voice on the line, warm and familiar. "Hi, Mrs. Green. How's Walter doing?" I asked. "Call me Marilyn," she said with a soft laugh. "He's doing great. He's even planning our next road trip, this time to Colorado. Mountain roads, huh? You nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "I'm not sure how he'll handle those grades." "Don't worry. His trainer will make sure he's prepped. As long as he doesn't try to race the truckers downhill, he'll be fine." She laughed. "That's exactly what he said. He's been reading articles about mountain driving all week." I chuckled, already picturing Walter in the driver's seat, white-knuckled but determined. "Well, I might need some Valium if I ride along," I joked. "I'll pack extra," she said with a grin in her voice. "Anyway, we're throwing a barbecue this Friday at 6 to celebrate Walter's recovery. You should come. Bring your wife. We'd love to meet her." I froze. Of course. I'd never told them about Lena. Tessa probably hadn't either. They had no clue I was going through a divorce. "Thanks, Marilyn," I said, keeping my tone even. "I'd love to come." The rest of the week flew by. Work was great. I sold 3 vans, one of which was a luxury tour coach previously owned by a country star. My commission would be a nice cushion, and for once, I didn't feel like I was running from something. On Friday at 6 sharp, I arrived at the Green estate. Their place looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Sweeping driveway, manicured hedges, a boat docked behind the house, and the RV I'd driven from Vancouver parked neatly in the garage. A valet took my keys like I was a celebrity. I went with it. Inside, the place buzzed with conversation. At least 50 guests mingled over barbecue and wine. Marilyn greeted me at the door with a big smile and a hug. "Where's your wife?" she asked. I cleared my throat. "I'm actually in the middle of a divorce." She leaned back, eyebrows raised. Then she pulled me into another hug. "Your wife is an idiot." Before I could reply, she hooked her arm through mine. "Let me introduce you to a few women who actually have taste." I laughed awkwardly, but inside, I knew I wouldn't stay long. I didn't belong in that social circle. I planned to eat some brisket, have a beer, and vanish quietly. That plan fell apart when I saw Tessa. She was across the yard, storming away from some guy, her face flushed with fury. Before I could even process why she was there, she spotted me and made a beeline. I turned to escape, but she caught my wrist. "Come on, Trey," she said, tugging me inside. She didn't stop until we reached the library. Yes, the Greens had a library. Once the door shut behind us, she turned to face me, arms crossed, still breathing heavy. "That guy's a complete a-hole. Said I have a behavior disorder and should be medicated." I started walking toward the exit. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice rising. "Home. Before you kick me out." "No. Because I agree with him." Her face froze. "But," I added, "he shouldn't have said it in front of everyone. That was cruel." "Damn it, Trey. You're supposed to be on my side." "Why?" "The only decent thing you've ever said to me came while you were lying on the pavement, bleeding out." She sank into a leather armchair, defeated. "How's the arm?" I asked, softening just a little. "Itches like hell," she muttered. She showed me a little scratcher she kept tucked in the cast. I nodded. "Useful." "I've got to go," I said, heading for the door. "Trey," she called after me. "Yeah." "If I promised to behave, would you have dinner with me?" I paused. "Tessa, I'm going through a divorce. I don't need more complications. Dinner's not a good idea." The next morning, I packed a bag and left town for a few days. No plan, just distance. Later that afternoon, my mom showed up at my door. I let her in. "I've been thinking," she said. "And you're right. There are things you can compromise on in a marriage, but not faithfulness. You reminded me what it felt like when your father cheated on me. No one deserves that." She looked up at me with red eyes. "I'm sorry I pushed you toward Amber. I got caught up in the idea of being a grandmother. I was being selfish. Please forgive me." I forgave her. We hugged. We talked. Then she left. Monday morning rolled around. Mid-morning, my phone rang. "Trey King." "Good morning, Trey. It's Gavin Pierce. Thought you'd like a quick update." "What's the news?" "Chase Bennett called trying to get his old job back. They told him to get lost." I laughed, shaking my head. "You just made my day. Figured you'd appreciate it." Around noon, the Greens coach pulled into the dealership. I was tied up with clients, so I couldn't go greet them right away. Half an hour later, I made my way to the RV. Tessa opened the door. "Hi. Come on in." I stepped inside, turning instinctively away from the driver's seat. The smell of lasagna greeted me like a memory. She handed me a glass of red wine. "Clink," she said, raising her glass. "Chianti. Good stuff." I took a sip. It was, in fact, excellent. "I figured lunch would be less pressure than dinner," she said. "Also figured we could talk somewhere private. No public meltdowns." I raised an eyebrow. I asked my grandparents if I could use the bus. Told them the truth. They made me promise not to drive off if I got mad. "You said when, not if." She laughed. "They know me." I expected some sarcastic jab or emotional spiral, but she surprised me. She just refilled her glass and moved around the compact kitchen with surprising grace, even with one arm in a cast. "I made lasagna this morning. It's good, if I say so myself." Then came a knock at the door. "Bring it in, please," she called. I opened the door to see my boss standing there, looking half amused. I gave him a wave. "It's fine," I said quickly, then shut the door. Tessa didn't miss a beat. She was comfortable here. In control, but not domineering. It was strange, seeing her like this. I smiled without meaning to. Maybe we'd still end up annoying the hell out of each other. But maybe, for once, we'd see it coming. She asked me to sit at the dining table, and I did. The space inside the coach was tight, but the slide-outs gave it a surprising openness. Cozy, but not cramped. She'd set the table for two, complete with cloth napkins and candles. It felt unexpectedly intentional. We ate slowly, chatting more easily than I expected. The lasagna was excellent, rich, cheesy, and clearly homemade. Over the next 2 hours, we finished a bottle of Chianti. Not once did we annoy each other, which in itself felt like a small miracle. Eventually, I stood and stretched. "Thanks, Tessa. That was a nice surprise." "And the food?" "Fantastic." "My pleasure," she said, walking me to the door. Just as I stepped down, she leaned in and kissed me. Gentle, cautious. We both froze, unsure what to make of it. "So, is dinner still off the table?" she asked with a mischievous smile. "What about tonight? 7 o'clock?" I hesitated. but nodded. She handed me a slip of paper with her address. I turned to leave, but before I made it to the bottom step, we kissed again, this time slower, less hesitant. It took me another 10 minutes to finally step away from the coach. When I did, I looked up and saw 6 faces watching me through the dealership's showroom windows, including my boss. The moment they realized I'd seen them, they scattered like kids caught with a cigarette. Except for my boss, who just stood there, grinning, and held the door open for me. "Well," I said, brushing past him, "I'm off to get ready for my date." He raised his eyebrows and laughed. "About time." 10 minutes later, I watched from my car as Tessa drove the coach off the lot like it was hers. My phone buzzed. Trey King. "So, you two didn't kill each other after all?" Marilyn's voice sparkled with amusement. "Hey, Marilyn. Is Walter listening?" "We both are," Walter chimed in. "Let's hear it." "I'm a gentleman," I replied. "I don't kiss and tell." "Horseshit," Walter shot back. "Language," Marilyn scolded, smacking something in the background. "Trey," she continued. When Tessa asked to borrow the coach, she was nervous. Really nervous. Finally, she admitted she wanted to make you lasagna. "Said you'd appreciate the effort." "She made lasagna for me?" "Yep," Marilyn said, chuckling. "He just knows," she said, all red-faced. "She's tough on the outside," Marilyn added more gently. "But she's got a good heart." "That mouth? It's armor. Just don't hurt her, okay?" "I won't," I promised, surprised by how serious I sounded. "I mean it," Walter said. "She's had enough bad luck with men. Don't be the next one." "I get it," I said. "Trust me." Before I could end the call, another came through. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Trey, it's Amber." Every bit of calm I had from that call with Marilyn evaporated. "What is it, Amber?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "I just thought you should know." Lena kicked Chase out. But he came back today, and he beat her up. She's in ICU. Her nose is broken. Chase is in jail. My stomach turned. "And the baby?" I asked, my voice low. She lied. "There was no baby. There never was." "I'm done with her, Trey." "She's still my wife until the divorce is final," I said. "No," Amber replied coldly. "She stopped being your wife the day she signed those papers." Then she hung up. By the time I reached Tessa's neighborhood, the sun was starting to set. The gated entrance loomed ahead, and the guard looked visibly surprised when I gave her name. "You're here to see Ms. Green?" he asked, like it was unheard of. "Yep." He called her to confirm, then buzzed me through. "Good luck," he said with a knowing smirk. Dinner was at a quiet local place she liked. Tessa ordered steak and potatoes, medium rare, baked with blue cheese, and a slice of rye pie for dessert. I was impressed watching her handle her fork and knife with one arm in a cast, refusing help. She ate half, then leaned back, sipping her drink. When the waiter offered to pack the rest, I joked, "Didn't know they had doggy bags here." "First time for everything," the waiter replied with a grin. As we left, the same guard was at the gate, but his expression had shifted from amused to mildly surprised. I nudged Tessa. "He's just shocked I'm leaving with you in the same car I arrived in. Usually, I call a cab." She laughed, loud and unrestrained. Back at her place, she invited me in. "Drink?" she asked, already walking toward the kitchen. "Gin and tonic," I replied. We sat in the living room, quiet for a while. Not awkward, just calm. Then she leaned closer. I got the message. We spent the night together. The next morning, I called my boss. "Not coming in today," I said. "Why not?" "I'm still on my date from last night." He laughed. "Good for you, Trey." The days that followed were eerily calm, like the storm that had dominated my life had finally blown itself out. No drama. No messages. No crises. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't chasing closure, I was living beyond it. Tessa and I kept seeing each other. Her edges were still there, sharp and proud, but she didn't use them like weapons anymore. Over time, they became points of connection. We challenged each other. Argued, yes. Debated, definitely. But we learned from it. We respected each other. She made me laugh. She made me think. More importantly, she made me feel human again. News about Lena came in bits and pieces through Amber, but it didn't land anymore. I listened the way you listen to weather reports in cities you no longer live in. At work, I was thriving. Sales were steady. The Greens became regulars, no longer just customers, but friends. They invited us to dinner often. Sometimes we went. Sometimes we didn't. But their support was consistent, grounding. At one dinner, Marilyn leaned over and whispered, "You've been through enough. Trey. Let yourself be happy. And I was trying. My relationship with my mom improved, too. She stopped bringing up Lena. She'd learned, finally, where the lines were. And I learned how to enforce them without anger. One evening, after a long day at the dealership, I pulled into Tessa's driveway. The Greens coach was parked there, her favorite space to cook. She greeted me with a smile and a glass of candy. The smell of garlic, herbs, and tomato filled the air. Her cast was finally gone. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. I clinked mine against hers. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something to dread. It felt like something I was finally ready to meet.